Hello, and welcome to the Wiland webinar series, Supercharge Fundraising with Smarter Targeting, a Success Story. We thank you all for being here today as we discuss how MissionWired partnered with Viant and Wiland to elevate their fundraising programs for their clients. First, I'd like to introduce you to our experts that will be participating today. First of all, we have from MissionWired, Vice President Alyssa Ackerman, and from Viant, we have Samantha Johnson, Director of Sales. And I'm Jennifer Ingram, the SVP of Digital Solutions here at Wiland. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items to cover. This webinar is being recorded, and you should all receive a link to that recording shortly after we wrap up today. The chat today is private. I will be moderating your comments and passing your questions on to the panel, and be sure that if we don't have time to answer your question during the session, someone will reach out to you and ensure that you get the information you need. If you have any problems seeing or hearing any of the presenters, we suggest refreshing your browser. This may kick you out of the session, but you should be able to rejoin immediately. And with that, let's kick things off. I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa.
Thanks, Jennifer. Before we dive into our case studies today, I want to take a moment to share what brought Jennifer, Sam, and me together for today's webinar. The strong, scalable results we'll be walking through are a direct result of the collaboration between our three agencies. First, Jennifer will kick things off with an overview of Wiland and how their access to rich consumer insights helps drive audience potential. Then Sam will share how Viant leverages advanced programmatic advertising to refine targeting and deliver precise measurement solutions. Finally, I'll walk you through how MissionWired has partnered with both Wiland and Viant to ensure our nonprofit partners' goals, brand, and mission are clearly communicated, allowing us to collectively drive higher engagement, stronger ROI, and increased revenue. With that, I'll kick it back over to Jennifer to talk more about data.
Thanks, Alyssa. So the first step in running a successful campaign is to find the best audience to target with your ask and your call to action. And the best way that we do that is with Wiland as a cooperative database. We have access to all sorts of data, including demographic data, intent data, cooperative data, lifestyle, social, but most importantly, we have billions and billions upon signals of people's transactions. So what this gives us is it gives us insights into what everybody is spending their money on, what they're donating to, where their interests lie. And all of this information we can put together to help our nonprofit clients be able to identify the best prospects for them to target in any given fundraising campaign. Traditionally, we have provided our audiences primarily for direct mail. But first, let me tell you what we can see. On the left is pretty much what you get with most nonprofits. They know that someone gave a couple of gifts. They gave 3 times in 3 years. Their highest gift was 100. But on the right-hand side is everything that Wiland knows about these donors. So we know how many transactions she has, the fact that she donates to Alzheimer's research, food banks, animal welfare. She's 52. She has 2 children. They have an income of over $1 million, and on and on and on. These are all indicators that we can see to try to identify the people who have the best capacity and propensity to donate. So as I said, traditionally this has been in direct mail, but the good news is you can use a Wiland audience in any channel. And we've been able to help a lot of our clients expand beyond the mailbox to enhance the mailbox, but also to target people in different audiences in different locations. So the whole goal is to reach the prospects wherever they are, and we're able to do that through multiple channels. So now that we have put together this ideal audience for MissionWired and their clients, let's talk about how we reach them. Sam?
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Jennifer. I'm really excited to be here and to talk about how Viant brings digital innovation to the nonprofit space and how this partnership with Wiland and MissionWired created a powerful combination to see really successful campaigns. So, for those of you who aren't familiar with Viant, we are an advertising technology company that empowers brands to innovate their digital advertising. So, we help to plan and execute, and most importantly, measure those efforts with greater accuracy and efficiency. What really sets us apart is our identity-based capabilities. So we're built on a proprietary household ID technology, and that gives us deterministic reach across 95% of US adults, which means we're able to reach the right people by tapping into Wiland audiences, not just more people, but we're aligning seamlessly with those segmentations and the modeling that Wiland can do so that we're driving real measurable outcomes. And our platform was built to really be able to resolve to any identifier in the bid stream. And so we work across channels, including CTV, obviously display, video, streaming audio, digital out of home. So we're helping brands, and in this case, for this webinar, talking about nonprofits, see meaningful impact, engagement, and results. So why does this matter? Well, in the nonprofit world, we know that there is a variety of budget levels and that every dollar matters and that every impression needs to be intentional. And so with Viant's capabilities and Wiland's data working together, we're able to expand the reach and engage, let's say, high propensity donors who are most likely to engage and support your mission. So we have predictive insights, and that is paired with premium inventory access. So it allows us to drive better campaign performance across any screen or any channel. With Viant's certified partner program, which Wiland has been part of since the inception, it gives you the confidence and the trust that there's data integrity and there's transparency and there's compliance from a foundational standpoint for everything that we do. And perhaps most importantly, going back to talking about every dollar counting and having to be nimble in what we're doing, we need to look at everything and drive impact faster. So we can track supporter to donor conversions in near real time. So all of the reporting through our advanced reporting suite is within the platform that you have access to. So together, Alyssa and I have had many conversations about this. We can exactly see what's working and we can optimize with confidence and clarity while the campaign's running. So making sure, again, that every dollar is working as hard as possible. So our identity solution, I mentioned at the heart of all of this is our Viant household ID technology. And what makes this different is that it's not just an identity graph. It is truly a living foundation for everything that we do across devices and platforms. So like I said, that means faster actionability, accurate audience reach, and giving you access to premium content at scale. One of the things that we've talked about with Alyssa and the team is how do we evolve and how do we go beyond just display? And thinking about CTV, we just did an acquisition of Iris TV, which is contextual CTV, which means that we can deliver your brand's message in particular moments that are relevant to the mindset of the consumer. So that's really impactful when you're thinking about using data and content in a contextual way. So whether we're targeting a donor on their mobile phone, because we look at the household level, but we can capture them outside of the home, or through connected TV, we're ensuring that the message is reaching that right household with the right intent behind it, wherever the consumer is showing up, which helps with managing that reach frequency, which is really important, again, when you have those smaller budgets or limited budgets to minimize waste and making sure that that impression is working as hard as possible. So for our activation, the partnership really came to life at the end of last year. So we started working with Wiland and MissionWired and started doing test campaigns at the end of 2024. And display for these campaigns that Alyssa is going to talk through, the central activation was in display. But what really drove the success was the mix of targeting tactics. And in addition to just site retargeting, to Jennifer's point earlier, we were able to extend direct mail audiences into digital environments. So we reached those known donors and re-engaged those lapsed donors and high intent users with display. So kind of like that 1-2 punch, they get it in the house and then they're seeing it across their devices. And like I said, we didn't quite get to CTV yet, right, Alyssa? That's something that we're talking about. Fingers crossed as we evolve, that will be something that we expand into. But we also looked at geographic targeting, and in one of the case studies, Alyssa will address this and how we use the geographic targeting to really focus in the dollars where we were seeing higher activity so that we were being very effective from a regional perspective for some of the nonprofits. And then through lookalike modeling using Wiland's audience data, we were able to prospect for new donors, and creative always helps guide those audiences through the consumer journey. Even though this was display, it's still important to think about how do we reach those people at the first time. So you have direct mail, then we have the display, and then we want to pull them back into the brand with the retargeting. So driving from awareness to action. And each campaign was customized. That's something that we worked really closely with the MissionWired team based on the advertiser's goals, their KPIs, what the ROAS look like, planning timelines, and specific engagement strategies. So we saw really early performance that was strong, that validated both Wiland's data quality and then the precision targeting that MissionWired was getting with Viant. And then looking ahead, we're continuing to discuss how to evolve beyond the core activation within display and explore deeper segmentation with Wiland. How do we explore different audiences and look at more cross-device strategies? So the takeaway, it's really, this collaboration was about all of us coming together and understanding the client's desire, what their KPIs are, what the objectives were, and then combining that data that we get with Wiland with the targeting precision and strategic planning so that we were driving smarter campaigns with stronger revenue outcomes. And our goal is always to ensure that every campaign is working smarter, not just harder. And so that's why we are always having conversations with the MissionWired team, with the Wiland team, making sure that these partners and our tools are helping nonprofits at MissionWired drive that meaningful growth while we're still staying true to their mission and their overall objectives. And like I said, collaboration is key. We're on the phone every other week. Jennifer and I are on the phone maybe every day, talking about where do we need to explore, what are the gaps that we need to fill in, how do we continue to customize the approach, not just rest on the laurels of what we're seeing, but continuing to iterate and bring in new thinking and new optimizations as the campaign's in market. And I think that was really key. The communication was huge. So with that, I think Alyssa is going to take us through some case studies.
Yeah, I'm excited to do so. And before we jump into those case studies, want to take a moment to just give a quick introduction to MissionWired for those that might not be aware of MissionWired. We're a direct response agency with deep experience helping nonprofits of all sizes drive impact, unlock revenue, and achieve sustainable growth. We do this by leveraging cutting-edge tools, technologies, and analytics to optimize every aspect of our partners' programs while staying grounded in authentically representing their mission. Our focus on renewal, retention, and upgrade span across every channel. And you'll see this approach in action through some of our partners' use of display advertising with Wiland and Viant, which we'll dive into next. So without further ado, we'll hop into some actual case studies to be able to share kind of in action how we have collaborated together. So for each of these case studies, we'll walk through the challenge the organization faced and then highlight the impact of our collaboration with Wiland and Viant. So our first example here, not all organizations have the ability to acquire donors on a national scale. Many are limited by geography. That's the case here for the San Francisco Marin Food Bank, whose donor acquisition efforts are confined to San Francisco and Marin County. Despite this constraint, there's still a strong expectation to drive large-scale donor response. I think that's something that a lot of organizations face. Like, even if you have an obstacle or roadblock, the goal is still there. You still have to figure out how to overcome that. And so SF Marin really wanted to be able to continue to drive finding new donors and prospects, even within a limited pool. So to help meet that goal, Wiland built a modeled audience based on zip codes in the region to find the most likely to give based on the counties that we were able to serve ads in. And then Viant was able to maximize reach and impact through strategic ad placement. And then the final piece of the puzzle here was MissionWired's contribution with rigorous testing of creative and landing pages to optimize conversion. So we have the audience, we have the placement, but if there's not that synergy and alignment with the call to action and the full user experience through the landing page, we're going to have a drop off there. So we wanted to make sure that we were standing up with the great efforts of Wiland and Viant. And our testing strategy draws on insights from performance in other channels like email and web. So this is something that MissionWired is really able to bring to the table here to have discussion with Wiland and Viant to say, this has really worked in email or web or in a direct mail piece. How can we bring that forward for our efforts here to reach our goals? And we're able to come to the table to say, like, these are the cadence and themes of the organization's messaging to really help with that pacing. And while any of these tactics could move the needle individually, it's really the combined power of all three that has led us to be able to double our KPI for the prospecting audience, which has been phenomenal that we've been able to move the needle here. And you can see on screen some of the creative examples we tested, ranging from headline variations and calls to action to different campaign tie-ins and premium-driven messaging. So next, we'll talk about the Jane Goodall Institute. And so this scenario might not be one that you'd expect. JGI has great brand recognition, so you would think that that would equal all the dollar signs available. But here we actually had quite a small spend available. So we really had to work together to figure out how do we bring the brand forward and develop a strategy that made the most of every dollar here. And so we were able to combine the modeled audience from Wiland and strategic placement from Viant to achieve a cost-efficient donor acquisition and long-term fundraising value. And a key part of that success was Viant's data-informed geo strategy, which Sam had kind of teased up perfectly for me earlier. But here, this is really where we were looking at data in real time and really evaluating and analyzing the best way to move forward, where we are able to advertise on a national scale, not like SF Marin, but we were able to have placement across the country. But we had to ask ourselves the question, did that make sense based on the spend we had available? So after being in market for a little bit and approaching one of our larger tentpole campaigns, Sam and the Viant team reached out to MissionWired to share some data points around where we were seeing really great scale and efficiency. And so we were able to make, Sam, I think we made the decision maybe in like an hour.
It
And
was
you all were
quick.
able to roll that out and see pretty immediate growth there. Sam, want to make sure that I explained that correctly and
Yeah,
see if you had
it
anything
was
to add
spot
there.
on. Yep. I think it's, important. A lot of times people think that they have to do national. And so we started there. And like Alyssa said, we started to look at the numbers and saw where through our conversions reporting, where we were seeing higher conversions happening. So we made the recommendation of let's start allocating dollars to these geo areas. And we started to see really great results. And that is a strategy that we work very closely with our clients on, starting from a geographic standpoint and then starting to expand out from those key geos. Then you can start to move back to a national to a national scope. But with the budgets that we had to work with, we needed to, again, going back to what I said earlier, work as hard as possible in the time that we had the campaign running. So we were really happy with the results of making this shift.
Great. And yeah, as you can see here, from a creative standpoint, is really we wanted to make the brand stand out. And the brand for JGI is not only their logo, but Jane herself. And so we provide both evergreen and standalone creative based on time of year. For our traditional display ads that really do bring forward an authentic brand and message, to really connect that we are asking them to support JGI. And so, with all of these tactics together, we were able to achieve a 237% return on ad spend, which has been phenomenal, and just continue increasing their brand footprint as well. And then last but not least, we have the World Jewish Congress. This case study highlights how MissionWired works to deeply understand and reflect an organization's broader goals. While fundraising is certainly important, some organizations like WJC are equally focused on strategically guiding supporters through the marketing funnel with a long-term vision in mind rather than just that immediate revenue. WJC recognized that their audience is highly responsive to awareness building efforts paired with meaningful after action opportunities, and they wanted to explore how display advertising could help this approach. And through our collaboration with Wiland and Viant, we were able to not only drive immediate donor revenue, but also significant petition signups, which is an important part of their mission and supporter engagement strategy. This success was driven by a mix of targeted placements, creative optimizations, and precise ad targeting. And so when it comes to a mix of targeted placements, I'm going to pass it back over to you, Sam, to talk a little bit more about native and spaceback.
Yeah, so I think this will sort of address Andrea's question in the chat. So like Alyssa said, they're always doing creative testing. And so the sequencing and what happens there is what is the message that is delivered at the onset, and then what is the message when we retarget. For this in particular, we knew that World Jewish Congress had some strong social engagements. So we started to work with Spaceback in terms of taking those strong engagement posts and recreating them into display ads that then go out to the open web. So tapping into creative that they already knew was working hard for them, repurposing that, and then driving that through the web. We saw strong performance there. And then we also wanted to look at what can we do in the native space where we are aligning with environments that make sense and showing up in those placements where the message from World Jewish Congress is aligning with what the consumer is reading in that space. So we started to do some testing around native and then some of these other platforms such as Spaceback to see how does that help with driving impact for the campaign.
Thanks. And yeah, you can see some of these creative examples here, native on the far left, and then our more traditional in the bottom. And again, this is all about conversations, collaboration, and really understanding what the goal is, and digging deeper beyond that immediate return on investment and thinking about the long-term value here, which we've definitely been able to work together to support for our clients. So that wraps up our case studies and leaves some good time for us to head into any questions.
Thanks, Alyssa. Andrea, I hope we answered your question for what you were looking for as far as the creative. Um, you answered and said, yes, that is. So we're opening it up to questions now. You can place your questions in the chat or in the Q&A function. Would love to hear any kind of thoughts you have. I know one thing that a lot of people ask me is when you're doing multiple channels, when you're, say, doing mail and digital and other things layered on top of that, do you ever worry about oversaturating the market? And what can you do to help with that?
I'm
Sam?
assuming that's for me, Jennifer.
There you go.
So that goes back to the household technology that we use and the fact that all of the identifiers that show up in the bid stream resolve back to the Viant household ID. So not only can we deliver messaging and targeting at the household level, we can then follow them outside of the household, which means we can manage the reach and frequency across all of the different platforms and devices that consumers are using. So if we know that we delivered a Jane Goodall ad at the CTV level, and then Alyssa's the one in the household, when she leaves the house, we can then retarget her on her phone because we know that that ladders back to the household, meaning that we can identify how many times she's seeing the message so we can minimize that oversaturation. Same thing, for instance, with digital out of home. If somebody's driving by the message on digital out of home, we can then identify that person based on the household ID and then retarget them on their mobile or on their CTV when they get home. And also with CTV, if we're delivering a message there, because of all of the identifiers that we have that ladder up to the household, we can then retarget them on their laptop or their mobile after they've been exposed to a CTV ad. So being able to see all of the engagements across the different channels with an omni-channel plan, we have the ability to manage that frequency so that you're not getting tired of seeing the same ad over and over and over again, which is then sometimes people are getting tired of that and it rubs them the wrong way instead of the right way, which is what we want to happen and have them donate.
A follow-up question to that. How do you handle deduping across channels?
It all goes back to our identity graph with the household ID. So being able to look at all of the different identifiers. So if it's name, email, IP address, mobile ad ID, we're able to look at all of those and ensure that we are deduping that at the household level.
Just realized I was muted. Sorry. Another question along those lines, can you align creative treatments based on what the prospect has seen before?
Yeah, so that would go into sort of the sequencing that Andrea brought up in her earlier question, like understanding what messages they've seen on, let's say, CTV, and how do you change that creative treatment on the different devices so that you're doing storytelling throughout the consumer journey.
Okay,
I've got a question for you, Alyssa. How does net cost to acquire new donors compare to mail?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's unique to your organization, especially those that might be very direct mail first or focused. It might take a longer time to equalize across net cost to acquire via mail or online. But I think the important part here is to think about how this helps to improve all channels. And so thinking more along the lines of attribution versus this being a standalone revenue source. But it definitely can it can make a difference based on your organization.
And a follow-up question, are the cost to acquire results related to platform conversions, attribution, or client CRM online giving platform data?
Yeah, I think you can look at it both ways. We certainly at MissionWired provide both the last click and attribution aspect because we do want to be able to showcase that direct cost to acquire, but we understand that it can be helping to increase performance for email or web, for example. So we want to show both views.
And attribution, I know, is kind of the burning question on everyone's mind. How do we do it? What makes it fair, right, and what is right? And Sam, Viant's been doing some really great work around attribution contributions. Do you want to speak briefly to that?
Yeah, I think this is a really topical conversation because a lot of people are questioning the legacy attribution of last click. And especially when you start to think about CTV, which is where Viant has really positioned ourselves as a leader in this space because of our household ID and not having to ever be reliant on cookies. We wanted to think about how do we help clients justify their budget on CTV? Because if you think about the customer journey, you have omni-channel campaigns, and if the last click is getting 100% of the contribution, it's skewing the results. And so a lot of agencies and clients that we've talked to get very frustrated because there is growth in CTV. There is that desire for that brand awareness, but also using CTV as a conversion driving channel. We needed to have a report and a measurement and a methodology that demonstrates that. So we just recently rolled out what we're calling, it's a mouthful, the contribution attribution report. And basically we are working with Adelaide, which basically scores the channels on attention. So it's giving attention metrics to the different channels. And then we're looking at time decay. And it's giving us an idea of across the different channels within the campaign, what is the attribution and the contribution across the different channels versus just relying on last click. And we're seeing a lot of people gravitate to this report because it is giving them that understanding of, yes, CTV can drive conversions. It is a component within the journey that helps tell the story. And so we are really excited about this continuing to evolve as we continue to work on the reporting. But a lot of people are excited about this because people are tired about the last click getting 100% of the attribution.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And using AI to drive all that is really, really amazing. Next question. I think this one's for Alyssa. What were the offers in these case studies? Was it a one-time ask or a monthly ask or both?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for San Francisco Marin Food Bank, we do run both one-time and monthly asks on an ongoing basis. Again, that creative sequencing too of if someone makes a one-time gift, then they start receiving those monthly offers. And I don't think we showcased any monthly offers in the case studies for JGI and WJC. They're mostly focused on one time, but that is an area that we are continuously testing. What's interesting is that oftentimes when we have the call to action of make a monthly gift, people are self-selecting the one time still. And so we even see sometimes more one-time revenue coming to the creative that says give monthly. So it's all about understanding your audience and behaviors and knowing that kind of no two organizations might behave the same way.
Great, thank you. Um, I know that a big concern for a lot of fundraisers right now, or any marketer for that matter, is the ongoing increase in cost and postage and paper and how to best reach people. Um, Alyssa and or Sam, how have you used the Viant strategy and your webinar strategy to find more people without absolutely breaking the bank? Because that's a concern that a lot of folks have, and they're not quite sure. I don't have as much budget as last year. What do I do? Where's the best way to go?
Yeah, I think those conversations are really important to have in an ongoing way and really understanding kind of what has worked for your organization from the perspective of creative and call to action and being able to leverage some of the audiences available through Wiland, for example. So if you've had great success with Wiland in the mail, but you're not able to have that same quantity in the mail, thinking about how to reallocate through display to still have those touch points. And build that awareness and surround sound. And so sometimes it is a little bit of figuring out how to leverage the channels that you're in, kind of figure out the balance, and then being able to explain those goals. And so, if that is something that you're finding postage is way too expensive, but you can invest digitally, explaining that to your partners with Wiland and Viant and saying, here's our goal and here's what we're trying to do so that we can find those solutions like the geographic targeting, the cost efficiencies, things like that, to make it work for you.
Great, thank you. Another question, are you using digital ads for stewardship and or retention? If so, how does your acceptable ROAS change for those campaigns and audiences versus an acquisition campaign?
Yeah, so we do establish different goals for each audience, whether that is website retargeting, reactivation, or acquisition. So all those KPIs will shift based on the type of audience. And in terms of the ads, whether for stewardship and or retention, sometimes it's a mix of both. For San Francisco Marin Food Bank, for example, we did some more advocacy related creative that didn't have a call to action to donate, but had that like after action upsell. So based on your mission, you could be thinking about leading folks to more information or learning more about your mission or saying thank you. For example, we've done kind of a gratitude style ad right before Giving Tuesday and end of year to really remind and prime people that they've supported the organization before we then build up to the high volume asks at end of year. So there is flexibility and opportunity for scalability across audiences and creative there.
Great, thank you, Alyssa. Um, we still have a little bit of time, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them in. And you've got our attention right now. So any other questions, please let us know. Wow, okay. An easy crowd today. That's great. Um, well, with that, I want to thank both Alyssa and Sam for their time today. Uh, it was great hearing your thoughts and experience. I hope our attendees are taking away some actionable advice on how to boost your next campaigns. And if you found value in the information, um, it would sorry, if we found value in the information we shared today, We would appreciate your feedback. A short 3-question survey about your experience is in the chat. In addition, we have a download of the presentation from today, as well as a case study. As a registered attendee, you'll be notified by email when the webinar is available online for viewing again or to share with your other colleagues. If you asked a question in the chat that we weren't able to get to, or if you think of a question after we end the webinar, please let us know, and we would be happy to respond to you. You can go to get more ideas and information. You can go to wiland.com or email us at info@wiland.com, and whether the question's about an audience or media targeting or creative strategy, we will make sure that all of our panelists will get the question that they can answer. Again, thank you for being here today. We hope the information we shared will be valuable as you craft future media strategies and drive more action. Thank you all so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.